Alright, today we're looking at a gold Ana.
Fighting. Look after yourselves out there.
I'm not very good at Hog. I want to play Winston. I'll kill him with my ult.
Kill him with his ult, huh?
Actually, this is better.
There we go. So, just straight out the bat, when you're, first of all, this left side here is not as good on this map for Ana compared to the right side. Just because on the right side, you can be relatively safe. There's a mini there. You can come in here to the mega, and you can still be. You have sight lines of like everything here and like this alley here, and you can see like this here. So you can see basically the entire point basically on the right side versus the left side where you really can't see much. And the other thing is, generally, you don't want to be ahead of your team unless your team's already like said, hey, we're going here, especially on Ana, because depending on where your team is set up, you may want to change where you're set up so that you can better see them. So yeah, it's like here, there's really, all you can see is here, and this is basically your side of the map anyways, so this isn't that great of a spot. If you want to actually be able to see the point and everything else where all the fighting's happening, you have to move out here or like along here, and that's a very risky position because you're out in the open basically and you're super close to the point, versus if you were over here, you'd be a lot safer. Sure, you're kind of out in the open, but you can hide behind this corner here or hide behind this corner here, maybe retreat into this room with the mega, get the mini, or go out onto the balcony even. So just be thinking of your positioning. The reason why the right side is so good compared to here is you have so many more sight lines and you're a lot safer. So even though the Torp is hacked, it's good that you're going to help your Sombra, but it's not your job to deal with him, especially since your Mercy just died. So your Hog and Orisa have no healing right now on point. Just call these people out here. I'm sure Sombra's already called it out, or she should anyway, and go point or go to the right side, somewhere safer, because you're in a very dangerous spot right now. Torb and Mora can easily come into you and just kill you pretty painful. And Reaper's in there too. So yeah, you should definitely be backing out now. It's a nice ante. Right. So Orisa's on point right now, fighting a Reinhardt and a Hog, and she has no healing. She's gonna lose. You're probably gonna die here, especially if you stay here. If that orb bounces close to you, you're gonna die. Like, if Torb or Mora or Reaper come here and they see you, they have to look at you and you die, basically. So I would attempt, you're probably gonna lose this fight. You lost your pharmacy already, so just tell your team, hey, we should reset, or attempt to help your Orisa, because that's your best chance of winning.
Lucio's hacked.
Goodbye, orb. That, yeah, this. So. Yeah. It's. Positioning is very important on Ana. Coming here on the right side is good. Like, look at how much more of the map you can see compared to the same exact spot except on the left, right? You can see all the way into their side. there, you can see the entire point. You can see here, and if you move up just like a little bit further, you can see this left part here too. Like, there's so much more you could see, so much more information you get, so much more healing you do, or possibly like damage you could do just by standing here. So I don't think you have a Lucio. You have a Mercy, right? Yeah, you have Mercy. So I hear Lucio close. So especially on points like these where there's a giant hole in the middle, as soon as you hear Lucio, you should start looking for him, because you're gonna get booped soon.
Where's this hog, right? Where's the
like he's somewhere over here now. At least that's where I hear him, like somewhere here.
turret?
Now he's like here. So he's super close to you. Someone's gonna get booped. And you get booped. So yeah, always be aware of who's on your team and who's on the enemy team. So pressing tab is super useful. It's such a useful thing.
I'm getting off Mercy.
You get to see what your team comp is. You get to see what the enemy team comp is. And you get to know what your team's ult is. Especially when the enemy team just lost a fight. You can see like what heroes they're switching up, so you know what to expect. So you don't get surprised by any like surprise pick or anything. But in this case, you have Ana Mercy and you heard a Lucio. You probably thought it was your own Lucio, except the only problem with that is you didn't have a Lucio. So always be weary of what the enemy team is running, and don't just assume just because you're hearing a hero close to you that it's your team. Because it could be a Reddit Lucio going for boops.
It's fine.
So now you switch to Lucio. So
I'm gonna EMP this fight. Just group up here.
Healed up.
So yeah, again, you're coming here to the left.
Alright, ready?
And the reasoning why this position is so bad is because you have to be in this position here in order to see the point. Which, first of all, it takes longer to get to this spot from spawn than it takes to get to this spot here. And it's more dangerous. You're positioned more aggressively. Like, you're a lot closer to the point. You're a lot closer to the fight. It's a lot easier for the enemy to get to you when you could just be positioned here, where it'd be harder for them to get to you, and you'd still have like basically the same sight lines. You'd still be able to do your job of healing. Whenever you're positioned somewhere, you always want to be asking yourself, is this safe? Can I be doing my job? Honestly, is there a better spot? Is it safe? This spot isn't that safe. Can you be doing your job? Yes. Yes, you can. Is there a better spot? Also, yes. The spot right here. Right? Because if you're here, is it safe? Yes. Can you be doing your job? Yes. Is there a better spot? Probably not. So always be asking yourself, is this the best spot I can be in, basically? If not, where else can I be so that I can still do my job of healing my teammate?
Ready to push in? Go on.
Turret's in left room.
So this spot here is exceptionally dangerous because all they have to do to get to you is just walk around this corner here, which is very easy to do. And once they do that, you have no escape. The only way you can get out is up this staircase, and in order to get to that staircase, you have to go through the people who are already in front of you. So this spot is super dangerous. Yes, you can see the hog, and you can see part of Orisa, but if you were positioned here on the right, you'd still be able to see the hog, and you'd be able to see the Orisa, and you'd still be safe to do your job. So thankfully the Reaper ignores you, but if you turn around, you're dead, because there's nothing you can do. And now also, Molten Core is on point, right in front of you. There's nowhere you can go. Ryan also ignores you, thankfully, but it looks like Lucio doesn't, and there's nothing you can do about that. So had you been positioned to the right of Hog, where, like, by the mini there, you probably would have lived. You would have been able to see your Orisa and keep her healed up. So she probably would have lived also. And you might have been able to turn the fight around with a well-placed anti or sleep.
With the 7%.
Push Ryan, push Ryan, push Ryan. Go get Ryan, go get Ryan.
I won't
Cut
take.
out for retirement anyway.
So it's not always,
Good
you know,
turret.
mechanics or, you know, hitting shots. Like, even if you're missed like half of your shots on the right, that'd still be more healing than you were doing in that corner. So. So, nice job not using your ult here. I hope you don't use it anyways, because there's no need. You've already won the fight. Lucio was the last one on the point. And there's a Reinhardt, but you deal with him, so good. You don't want to be using ults, like that Orisa ult there probably wasn't the best because you had already won the fight, right? The enemy would just be trickling in, so there's no need to use fights or use ults in a fight that you've already won, because then you just be wasting them.
No hook. Left.
I'm gonna EMP again.
Wait till they push.
So this position here is also kind of dangerous. It's much safer than in that corner. You have more options of escape, but the problem with this is unless you're constantly checking behind you, like in the room, because it's easy for them to just drop down and surprise you guys and just like, I don't know, kill you guys that way. Especially if you're focusing on the Rhine instead of behind you. So, whereas if, again, back on the right spot, then you'd be safe to do whatever you want, basically. And if they do try to go jump on you there, they'd be way overextending into your team, and your team would hopefully help you. So.
Yeah,
Here
wait,
comes
wait for them to push.
Hog left room. Hog left room.
So they call Hog left room, and you hear a Hog like behind you. I would immediately turn around because the Hog's probably like in the process of dropping down or already dropped down. The Hog you're hearing is definitely not your Hog because he's all the way out here. So you're definitely about to be hooked, or shot at or something by Hog, or maybe they're Lucio or someone's about to shoot you. So I would either turn around and look and try to sleep, or just walk around and hide. And wait for, let your Orisa deal with it or something like that. There it is. So again, you back up to this corner here. You're gonna die. Like, you're surrounded. Lucio's here, Rupert, Reinhardt. There's no way for you to escape. You're going to die if they notice you. What would have been better, I guess, is to just come up here, but then that wouldn't have been that great either because Mora would have been able to beam you down. So the best play would have been to just not have been on point in the first place. It would have been to be on the right here by the mini. So
Line low.
again, here, sure, you killed the Rhine, which is good, but you're not really able to heal your team much. You get a nice pick on the Rhine, but you would have gotten more value if you were able to heal your Roadhog, or I'm not sure what happened to the Orisa actually. Again, here you get a nice sleep on the Lucio, but your Hog's critical, so you want to try to keep your Hog up as long as you can, instead of, you know, you kill the Lucio, there's no way you can kill him right now, so it's fine to just let him sleep.
First one. Hog attack again, inside left.
Also, another thing,
Hog one.
so this is basically last fight for you guys. The enemy team is at 99%. If you lose this, you basically just lose. So
Line low.
you want to stall the point as long as you can. So that means like coming on the point, which is good, but then staying. I guess you do stay on point, never mind. But so. Is that okay? That's you. But yeah, so dying on point is, and stalling it as long as you can is very important, especially on King of the Hill. Like even if they weren't at 99%, you would have still had wanted to come onto point and stall as long as you can, so that you can get more percentage. So it was a good thing. It was good that you came onto point, but just leave the Lucio sleeping because there's no way you can kill him, and if you wake him up, that's just one extra person you have to deal with. If you leave him sleeping, you can attempt to stall for maybe a couple more seconds. But either way, you're probably not going to be able to recontest this, most likely. Yeah. So, the biggest thing to take away from that point was your positioning, I would say. Don't position so aggressively if you don't have to, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because you were positioned so aggressively, like on point or right next to point, a lot of times you weren't able to do your job very well, and that is heal the... Ooh, almost made it. But you weren't able to heal your team very much because your sightlines were constantly getting cut off. And if you wanted to go actually see those sightlines, you would have had to put yourself way out of position. Whereas if you just position yourself slightly smarter, like on the right side, you would have been able to heal your team much better. And maybe you would have been able to win that way.
We're going to point.
Hog left side, and then the rest of them are main. So watch out for hog hooks left side.
Why are we?
Hog left side.
So you only have 1,000 healing, and it's been 5 minutes. So the hog got more healing done than you did. That's why you have bronze. Now, looking at medals is generally not, medals don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but it is a good way to know if you're like doing something bad, right? So 1,000 healing in 5 minutes, especially if it's bronze, that means hog out healed you, and if hog out heals you, that's generally not the best. There are some scenarios where like your team just isn't taking that much damage because you're just winning, killing the enemy team before they can kill your team or hurt your team even. And in that scenario, then it's fine, whatever. You don't have that much healing, but it's fine. But if you're losing, you weren't able to deal that much healing because you were positioned, because of your positioning basically. You were positioned either in spots where your sight lines to your team were constantly being cut off, or you just like couldn't move from your spot. You couldn't reposition to a better position because if you did, you would be caught out by the enemy team, and that's why you weren't able to deal that much healing. And that might not be the sole reason. That might not be the only reason why you lost, but it is definitely a reason why you lost that point. So.
And with Ryan right side, we're going main, looks like.
We're going to
Here.
point.
Hog left side.
So you do realize that
Main, so
they
watch out
they
for
called
hog hooks
out they're
left
going main,
Why
so this is
are
good.
we?
So while you're being frozen here, you can still shoot your Reinhardt to heal him. Just a minor thing to maximize your healing output, I guess. There's a Lucio on you. Oh yeah, you just get killed by Lucio. The Reinhardt sees it, but the rest of your team doesn't. So in that scenario, just call out, be like, there's nothing you can do about it besides maybe like shooting him a couple of times to try to scare him away. But call out to your team. You're like, help Ana. Ana needs help. Lucio on your Ana.
3/4.
Push Lucio.
That's not really your fault.
Just push hog. Push hog, use big turret.
That was, if anything, your team for ignoring the Reinhardt,
Soldiers are hard to kill.
calling out Lucio.
Like this fucking Reinhardt, Ryan.
I almost have my ult.
Take your medicine.
So this position here is not necessarily bad, but there is a better position, and that position is like behind you, sort of like up, not there, but it's like on the high ground. Like there's a bridge, you're like right under a bridge right now. Like on that bridge would have been better. So your team is playing aggro, so you can't really take this time to reposition. But if you'd had time to reposition, then maybe going left up high ground up the stairs, because then you'd basically be in essentially the same spot. You'd have essentially the same sight lines, but you would be on high ground, which would mean it would be harder for the enemy team to get to you. So yeah, up here would have been a better position, but I mean, you didn't have time to reposition there, so.
Back now, sorry.
Just like play safe, play safe. I can always ult once they push in. Can we? Wait. We're gonna EMP shatter. EMP shatter. Ready? EMP shatter here.
So again, if you threw your nade like right here, that would pretty much hit at least the Reinhardt and the Mei, probably the Moira too, and then that would be huge, because then your team can go in on them and they can't heal the damage that your team does, whereas you can still be healing your team because they don't have an Ana. So that's one way. Like the reason why Ana is so much better than Moira is because she can position herself in the back, basically, where it's very hard for the enemy to get to, while still being able to heal, and she has much more utility. Her anti-nades and her sleeps are like insanely good. You can basically cancel out all of the healing that the entire team does for a couple seconds with anti-nade, or you can just like take someone out of the fight completely for a couple seconds with sleep. So whereas Moira can only like heal and damage, that's all she can do, and she has to be up close to her team doing it, so she has to endanger herself, while Ana can stay safe, heal just as much, probably a little less, but it doesn't matter because you're getting way more value out of sleep and anti-nades. So you want to constantly be looking for, like, especially in situations like these, where the enemy team is attempting to start a push. If you can get a fat anti here, like throwing up it above the shield, it'll splash down and hit definitely the Rhine at least, probably Mei and Moira too. It basically stops. If they decide to push, you win because they can't heal. If they don't decide to push, then you get a couple more seconds of progress, basically. And if you're with a really good team or like well-coordinated team, you can be like, hey, they're all anti, let's push into them, and then you'd all push in and you'd probably win because they can't heal. So instead of just standing there and looking at them and getting shot by Moira and Lucio.
Right.
That's a nice sleep on the Ryan.
More ult.
Low.
So there's a Lucio in your, like, oh, you can see him actually right here. That's the enemy Lucio. I think that was the enemy Lucio, right? Is that your Lucio? There's a Lucio somewhere in your back, and that is why you weren't able to go heal your Ryan. But
Kill Lucio. Lucio 1. Dead.
Nice kill on the Lucio. Looks like he won this fight though. But so what I was going to say is the Ryan gets a nice shatter and he charges in. So instead of backing up into the point where you can't see your Reinhardt, maybe go to the right, like behind your Zarya, so you'd still be relatively safe, but then you'd still be able to heal your Reinhardt also, because by backing up into here, not like you didn't know Lucio was behind you, but there is a Lucio here that ends up like dealing damage to you, and like because you backed up there out of sight of your Reinhardt dies. Whereas if you had maybe even just like backed up into this room here on the right, you would have been able to see your Reinhardt and been able to heal him and keep him up alive. You still end up winning the fight because your Reinhardt got a nice shatter and your Zarya was able to follow up, but your Ryan would have been alive most likely. So
Couldn't finish.
Kill Lucio, kill Lucio, kill Lucio. Lucio 1. Dead. Where now? Right, come in, bud.
So here, there's the entire enemy team is basically here, unless there's someone like flanking on the left, but that's unlikely because most of their team just died. So your team is strafing left and right to avoid the enemy team, to help the enemy team, to make it so that the enemy team has a harder time to hit your team. And that's fine, but you're also strafing left and right when there's really no need to, and that's making already hard shots to hit even harder. And so in situations like this, it's totally acceptable to just stop moving and focus on aiming, basically. As long as you're like in a relatively safe spot, which you aren't, but it's fine in this case because the rest of the enemy team is backing up from a lost fight, and most of them are dead. So you can be pretty confident that there's no one that's gonna sneak up on you. Nice sleep on the Reaper. An extra couple 1 or 2 shots of healing wouldn't have been able to help there. It was just the Rhine hit a nice shatter and the Reaper followed up. So
yes, it does.
Yo, we need to help our Reinhardt.
Yes, please. I've been getting fucked this night.
but I will make a note that even though there's nothing you could have done during that fight, had you, the previous fight, kept your Reinhardt alive, he would have been up there at the choke fighting also, and he might have been able to block the shatter, which maybe would have won you the fight. Maybe. It's just, you know, things to think about. It's like
And you're wall up.
little things like that add up in games. So honestly, there's no need to cross there. I don't think you're actually going to be punished for it, but because Moira ult Coalescence goes through Reinhardt shield, so I don't think any of them were going to push up into you, and if they did, you could have just backed up to the left here further. But there's nothing wrong necessarily with trying to cross to be behind your Reinhardt shield, except that it kind of like made you an easy target for the enemy, because you're basically crossing this entire gap. Thankfully, they miss you a lot, and they don't like hit you with much, but so there really wasn't a need for that nade. Your Lucio was next to you. He was mostly full health. Your Ryan, you can still see he has armor, so he's at full health too. You're at pretty much half health, but your Lucio's on heal, and hopefully he'd notice that you need healing, and so you'd be fine with Lucio healing. That nade would have been much more useful if you could have gotten like a big anti-nade, and then you could have sped onto that anti-person and killed him, and then you'd have an even fight basically, because Sombra's dead.
Rodak is ult, be careful.
But your Sombra can get back quicker than most people, so. So here, instead of trying to, because you still have beat, instead of trying to solo this Moira, who's a difficult target to kill, especially if you don't have any cooldowns, I would instead be looking to heal your team who's caught in Blizzard. Which you do eventually, but yeah, that was probably a lost fight either way, because your entire team got caught in Blizzard pretty much.
I've come back from worse.
Nice. 90%.
I don't think anyone's actually going to be able to touch point.
I will touch.
Sombra.
So there's a Reaper gonna stand right next
Yes.
to me and a Roadhog. They're all hacked, but I'm gonna need help right now. I can't get to it.
You could have just shot the wall. But I don't think, even if you did and you broke the wall, you would have been able to get through anyways. You wouldn't have been able to get through in time, I should say.
Don't touch. I'm good.
So, overall, I don't know if the quality is so bad. But anyway, overall, I would just... A lot of this fight, or a lot of this game, rather, your biggest problem was your positioning. Like, your cooldown management was okay, wasn't awful, but the biggest deterrent to you climbing, I would say, if most of your games are like this game, is your positioning. You're wanting to play with your team a lot, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But with heroes like Ana, playing with your team, there are scenarios where you do want to play with your team, but sometimes it might not be the best idea. Because, especially in situations like this, for example, where you are with your team, but it's very easy for the enemy team to get to you, and if you die, then your teams are most likely going to die too, because then they don't have their main healer. So definitely be looking for, always be thinking of your positioning. Is this a good spot to be in? Can I do my job? In this case, your job would be healing. Can I heal my team here? The answer to that is kind of yes. Am I safe? The answer to that is definitely no. Is there a better spot? Yes, there's definitely a better spot. Even just being over here, like on the staircase, here, it would have been a better spot, because then you could have escaped this way. But it's still not as good of a spot as this spot on the right here by the mini, because then, again, you can see everything that's happening on point. You can see over there, you can see here. You have a mini to back up to, you have a mega to back up to. So, yeah, biggest thing, positioning. Hopefully that this video was helpful. If not, I'd love some feedback on what I could do better. I'm still trying to get better at this too. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.